I'm Sean Deveney from Heavy.com Sports. Got Steve Bulpett here with me to talk a little bit about the NBA Finals. Let me start with this, Steve. Pretty much expected how you expected things to unfold in Game 1 there?
I fully expected a team to come out in the fourth quarter and just take over the game, hitting a bunch of three-pointers. Just wasn't sure that would be the Boston Celtics doing that team. And the Celtics have been the team that's been prone to getting flustered in difficult situations. But it was, again, just the opposite this time. And, it could be a lot of reasons behind it. Some of them just the hot shooting of guys like Al Horford and Derek White and Marcus Smart. But also it could be a case of the Celtic defense, kind of wearing on the Warriors over the course of a game.
Yeah, and I thought offensively, obviously a lot of those threes that the Celtics made, whether it was White, Al, and Marcus Smart before that, those guys were combined 15 for 23. I don't think that's something that the Celtics will bank on seeing throughout the series, but those were open shots. And they got those open shots because they really attacked the paint and forced the Warriors defense to make those adjustments and make those rotations. Celtics outscored, and this has not been a strength of Boston by any means. They outscored the Warriors 34 to 26. Warriors were one of the best teams in the playoffs, points in the paint. The Celtics were one of the worst. But that really seemed to be something that did open up those perimeter shots for the Celtics.
Yeah, it's something that we've mentioned. I know I've mentioned on Twitter a couple of games ago, I think, that you need to get for good open three-pointers, you need to get paint touches. You need to get the ball moving in to out. You need to get the ball going side to side. And there wasn't a lot of that early in the game for the Celtics. They made enough shots that they stayed in it. But it wasn't until really that run where they picked up their pace, which is something that Ime Udoka and before him Brad Stevens were essentially begging this team to do. But they picked up their pace, and in those situations, you're not necessarily running stuff. You're just moving the ball, cutting, and letting the ball find energy. And it's aesthetically pleasing basketball as well. And it's the same when the Warriors do it. But Boston got itself together in that regard. And like you said, there were drives, there were kickouts, and all those things that, when you're a shooter and you get to, a squared up look with the ball coming at you from the lane. And, that's a lot easier than catching it over here and then trying to line up. And it certainly was a huge factor, the ball movement in Boston getting good shots and making them.
And I think, when you look at the fourth quarter, and I think a lot of folks in Warriors land are doing that this morning, and Steve Kerr talked about it last night, and that is, look, if a team's going to shoot like that in the fourth quarter, at some point you just say, congratulations, you've won the game. There's not much you can do about it. But I do wonder, did they leave Steph on the bench too long? Did Steve Kerr leave Andrew Wiggins on the bench too long? They didn't come back in until just a little more than 6 minutes left in that fourth quarter in the NBA Finals game, where you're starting to let go of the rope like that. Is that something Kerr could have done differently?
Yeah, certainly. You could look at that. But I think what the Warriors were missing at that point was just the team digging in on defense, sitting down. Just getting into people to force the Celtics to have to work harder to get what they wanted. If you look at the Warriors earlier in the game, they were getting really good shots against Boston's defense, or getting openings, because the Celtics weren't getting into them. They weren't doing those things, and it kind of worked in the reverse in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and certainly that was something that it's if you're the Warriors, I don't know that you necessarily need to make some adjustments on that. I do wonder if you do see some things that maybe the Warriors can make adjustments for in Game 2.
I think they need to as much as they're a 3-point centric team, I think they need to look at getting some stuff inside. Their movement is great, but you need to get some guys, perhaps guys back cutting, flashing. They did some back cuts early on, but they need to get Draymond Green and even Kevon Looney, get them a few buckets inside, and I think that changes how the Celtics can move defensively and just makes them more conscious of that area. You did see the Warriors get a bunch of offensive rebounds and some points that way, but I think the threes will be there for them, and the Warriors kind of lull you into a weird sense because they can hit really difficult threes.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, that can catch up with you as well.
And how about on the other side? Obviously we saw Steph Curry come out with the 21 points in the first quarter, and he had an excellent game. I think he probably heard about how great Marcus Smart is at defending him, and maybe showed that there's more to it than that. But are there adjustments the Celtics can make on the other side to contain Steph a little bit, or did we just see Steph have the kind of game that he's prone to have?
I think Boston was a little slow early in the first quarter. They weren't up enough on Steph Curry, and going for his fakes is silly because his release is from in here anyway. So it's not like he's going to out jump you to get off his shot. Staying home on his fakes. I'm sure that's going to be a topic of their video session today, if it probably already has been by now. That's something I think they can be better defensively.
Yeah, and from what you saw from Jason Tatum, I mean, obviously the 13 assists, you've got to give him credit for that. If you're going to go 3 for 17 from the field, then you want to be able to impact the game in other ways. I thought he did. Was the 3 for 17? You chalk that up to, hey, even a superstar has a bad night. Yeah,
and he was, when he missed a couple, he was searching a little bit and thinking about his shot, which conscious thought is the enemy of good offense. You want it to be an instinctive thing,
right.
And you look at he did miss a couple of wide open threes, but he wasn't one of the guys that was the beneficiary of the open passes. He was the guy making the passes in to out that were getting guys open looks. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see the Celtics try to get Jason involved earlier in game 2, perhaps just like with some quick cuts. They'll get him some looks closer to the basket, have him see a couple shots go through, and loosen himself up, get in more of a rhythm. And certainly they're going to be looking to, have him be the guy on the receiving end after a paint touch and the ball gets tossed back out, and see if he can be squared up and maybe get a couple of those to go down. And again, that would certainly alter the way that the Warriors have to play. But the way they were playing him was to, show him bodies and crowd him, and that opened things up for other people.
And last thing for you, Steve, Al Horford, obviously going back to the Miami series and obviously a couple of those games in the Milwaukee series, a bit of a man possessed, now 36-year-old Al Horford. Happy birthday to him. But just the level that he's been at, it's been different. You've covered him for a long time. What do you see from him here?
Excuse me. I just see like a quiet, consistent. I won't say rage. I'll say he is as competitive as Marcus Smart is in a lot of ways, but he's just that much more controlled. The stuff he does, and we've talked about this before, Sean, a lot of things he does do not show up on the stat sheet. He is a guy that is playing good positional defense that allows other guys to make plays. But then again, he made a couple of key blocks and all that. So You know, he's a guy that takes things personally, but doesn't yell about it. When Draymond Green flexed early in the game, and all of a sudden Al goes for that 3-point play in the fourth quarter, and he flexes. It's like, yeah, I remember that. You know, Al Horford. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where he keeps it on his uniform, but there is a folder in which he keeps receipts.
I thought the flex on his home floor. You hope if you're the Celtics that didn't poke the bear a little bit, but at the same time, it's something that Draymond Green does all the time. So hey,
it wasn't Al doing it like, hey, look at me. It
right.
was Al, responding to something earlier, like, we see you, and we don't forget.
Yeah, and we're still here. Right. Well, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. And we'll be back to talk about Game 2, which is sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks here. Just kidding. It's Sunday, but teams get plenty of rest here in the NBA Finals. I'm Sean Deveney from Heavy.com Sports. Thanks for checking us out.